how do we get there? How do we get to feel that inner peace? For me, what works for me the best is to actually listen to content like this. Sometimes even my own content, honestly. When I'm editing or people comment something nice, I will sometimes watch my own stuff. But usually other people's stuff. And sort of the underlying theme is anti-content. Content that does not require you to add more clutter to your mind. We're not talking about anything you need to do in these videos. We're not talking about something you need to believe in. We're not talking about you having to embrace something challenging. It's quite the opposite. I think this is where the most value comes from. So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to make videos that make you realize that you are totally fine and complete as you are. That nothing of value can be added to you. And that whatever goals you have and whatever desires you have, they're not going to improve the quality of you, of your contentment. There are going to be these interesting toys that come and go, but the most important thing will always be that inner peace, that contentment that comes from within you, which is always there. It's there right now. Like, it's there whether I say something or I don't say something. We can try it right now. Right now I'm speaking. Do you feel it? Do you feel that inner peace? Now I will stop speaking. And now ask yourself if you still feel that inner peace. Or does the mind come back in and cause all sorts of trouble and remind you of all sorts of usually negative things? It's very rare that the mind comes in and says something positive. This is why we often talk about letting go of the negative mind, but it's really letting go of both negative and positive thoughts, because pretty soon the positive will turn around. You can look at the mirror one day and be like, oh wow, I feel great, I look great, and then one day you don't look great. And then you can no longer rely on that thought pattern anymore for your own contentment, right? So there's not a single thought that is going to save you. All thoughts, no matter how positive, they are not going to work out in the long term. You need something else. You need to realize that you have inner peace underneath the thoughts all the time. Nothing interesting needs to happen for you to connect with your own inner peace. You don't need to do something. You don't need to reach your goals. You don't need to be a certain way. Nothing. I talked about in the last video how choosing activities in your daily life that depend on your own present awareness can help you out, but only because they are essentially adding more presence they're forcing more space into your life. That's the only reason why they're working the way they do. That's the only reason why doing what you love makes you fulfilled. There's nothing intrinsically valuable about the activities that you do. It's the person you need to become to be able to complete these activities or fulfill the process of the actions required, to do the activities. It's who you become that is important, right? It's or maybe who you let go of. Maybe you just in those moments of doing what you love, of some call it getting into flow. It's totally fine to call it that, getting into the state of flow. Why does it feel good to be in a state of flow? Because we're not thinking. That's all it takes. All it takes to be happy is to not think. That's it. End of self-help book. But no, you have to fill in 50,000 words and, and 9 different chapters and rules and guides and, but no, just don't think. Which sounds like an action, but it's really not. You can also, quote unquote, get there by watching videos like this. Content that isn't really content, right? Like if you asked ChatGPT to give me some key learnings from this video, I don't know what it would come up with. Maybe something to do with mindfulness. But even that is not content, right? Mindfulness is not content. It's the opposite of content, and obviously the word is ridiculous, mindfulness, when it's really just being absent of mind activity. So it's mind emptiness, which should be a word now that I think about mind emptiness. It just doesn't have that ring to it. Yeah. Anyways, inner peace, you have it right now. Right now, it's there. It's there. So what do you do when the mind comes back in? What do you do then? You feel that inner peace, you feel content and calm, and 5 seconds later, the mind just rushes back in, and now suddenly all the problems are back in your life. Well, let's examine that. What happens if we stay present and we observe the thoughts? We're expecting the thoughts to arrive, and we welcome any thoughts to pass through without initiating any contact with these thoughts. Let's see what happens then. Let's try. So we become silent. We observe the mind, the empty space that is pretty soon going to be filled with content. What happens if we observe this empty space and the content that appears in it? And if there's no content appearing within your mind, then there's going to be sounds. There's going to be emotions, feelings, sensations, sensory input. Observe that as well. And what happens if you just observe all of it? You see, theoretically, you could stay here in this inner peace forever. So part of having a content life is taking responsibility for the fact that you didn't want the contentment. You didn't want the inner peace. It got boring pretty soon. You wanted some drama. You wanted some more excitement, maybe. And then again, you realize that at any moment, you can feel this inner peace. It's your choice.